In the heart of a quiet Missouri neighborhood, on a warm summer night in 1992, 3 women vanished without a trace. Their cars were left in the driveway, their purses lined up on the floor, and their beds looked as if they had just been slept in. But the women themselves were gone. This is the chilling true story of the Springfield Three, a case that has baffled investigators and haunted a community for over 30 years. It all started on the night of June 6, 1992. For 18-year-olds Stacy McCall and Suzie Streeter, it was a night of celebration. They had just graduated from high school, and the future was wide open. Like so many other graduates in Springfield, they spent the evening hopping from one party to another, laughing with friends and making plans for the summer. Their original idea was to head to Branson, but as the night wore on, their plans changed. Sometime around 2:00 a.m., they decided to call it a night and head to Suzie's house. Suzie lived with her mother, 47-year-old Sherrill Levitt, in a small, tidy home on East Elmer Street. It was a last-minute decision, a simple choice to end a long, happy day. No one could have known that this would be the last confirmed time anyone saw them alive. The next morning, June 7th, the summer sun rose over Springfield. Friends who had made plans with Stacy and Suzie started to get concerned when they couldn't reach them. A little before noon, one of their friends, Janelle, and her boyfriend decided to stop by the Levitt house. They found the front door unlocked. Stepping inside, they were met with an eerie quiet. The house wasn't in disarray. There were no signs of a party or a violent struggle. It just felt empty. The television was on, its screen glowing silently in the living room. The family dog, a small Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon, was pacing anxiously, but the 3 women were nowhere to be found. Thinking they might have just woken up early and gone to a nearby water park, the friends didn't panic immediately. But as they looked around, a few strange details began to stand out. Cheryl's cigarettes and lighter were on the nightstand. The book she was reading lay open, her glasses resting on the page. In the living room, all 3 women's purses were lined up neatly on the floor. Inside were their wallets, money, and identification. Their car keys were also inside the house. Outside, Suzie's car and Cheryl's car were parked right where they'd been left the night before. If they had gone somewhere, how did they get there? And why would they leave everything behind? One detail, however, was out of place. The glass globe of the front porch light was shattered, with shards of glass on the porch. Thinking they were just tidying up after a possible late-night accident, the friends swept the broken glass into a dustpan. It was a small act of tidiness, but it would later become a critical point of contention for investigators, who believed valuable evidence may have been swept away with it. By late afternoon, with still no word from the women, their families grew frantic. Stacy McCall's mother, Janice, called the police. When officers arrived at the home on Delmer Street, they were faced with a puzzle that had no easy answers. The scene was bizarrely normal. There were no broken windows, no kicked-in doors, nothing to suggest a forced entry. The beds had been slept in. It seemed as though the women had gone through their nightly routine, gone to sleep, and then simply disappeared. The investigation kicked into high gear almost immediately. Police treated the case as suspicious from the very beginning. This wasn't a case of 3 people simply deciding to run away. Leaving their cars, their money, and all their personal belongings made that theory impossible. Detectives began digging into their lives, starting with their phone records. They uncovered something strange. Answering machine records showed that someone had been trying to erase messages. And then, a more disturbing discovery. A friend of Stacy's who had called the house that morning reported hearing a man's voice on the line, making a crude and obscene comment before hanging up. Who was this man? And what was his connection to the house? But with no ransom demands and no clear motive, investigators were grasping at straws. Several theories began to form. Could it have been an abduction by someone the women knew? The lack of forced entry suggested they might have willingly opened the door to their attacker. Or perhaps the threat was already inside the house when Stacy and Suzie arrived. Police considered the possibility of a targeted attack against one of the women, with the other two becoming tragic collateral damage. They also couldn't rule out the chilling idea of a random opportunistic predator who happened upon the house that night. Every theory, however, ran into the same wall: the complete lack of physical evidence. The news of the triple disappearance sent a shockwave through the city of Springfield. This was a quiet Midwestern town, not the kind of place where three women vanish from a locked home in the middle of the night. The story exploded in the media, and soon the faces of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy were on news channels across the country. The community rallied together. Hundreds of volunteers scoured the surrounding woods, lakes, and rural roads, desperate for any clue. A massive tip line was set up, and calls flooded in. People reported seeing suspicious vehicles, strange individuals, anything that seemed out of the ordinary. But every lead, every potential sighting, eventually turned into a dead end. The women had vanished as if into thin air. Over the decades, the investigation has never truly gone cold. Detectives have chased down countless leads. They looked into a transient man who had been seen near the home just days before the disappearance. They explored connections to known criminals and serial offenders who were active in the region at the time. One persistent tip involved a suspicious-looking van that was reportedly parked near the residence on the night of June 7th. Some witnesses claimed to have seen a woman matching Suzie's description being forced into a vehicle, but these accounts could never be verified. Perhaps the most significant break in years came in 2007, on the 50th anniversary of their disappearance. A credible tip led investigators to a hospital parking garage in Springfield. The source claimed that the bodies of the three women had been buried in the foundation of the garage when it was being constructed back in 1992. It was a horrifying thought, but it was also the most concrete lead they'd had in years. Using ground-penetrating radar, experts identified three anomalies under the concrete floor. Hopes surged that this long, painful mystery might finally be solved. But after a careful and painstaking excavation, the results were heartbreaking. The anomalies turned out to be nothing more than buried construction debris. The trail, once again, went cold. And so we are left with the same questions that have haunted this case from the very first day. Why were their purses and keys left behind? If they left willingly, why abandon their cars and all their money? And most baffling of all, how could three people be taken from a home without a single sign of a violent struggle? The house on Delmer Street offered no answers. Its quiet, orderly state spoke not of chaos, but of a profound and total absence. The mystery lies in the hours between 2 a.m., when Stacy and Suzie walked through the door, and the next morning, when the sun rose on an empty house. What happened in that silent darkness remains locked away, a secret kept for over 3 decades. Today, the case of the Springfield Three remains officially open. No bodies have ever been recovered. No suspects have ever been charged in connection with their disappearance. Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall are still listed as missing persons. Their families have endured an unimaginable agony, living in a state of limbo, forever waiting for an answer that may never come. For the rest of us, their story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that happen in the most ordinary of places on the most ordinary of nights. 3 women, in the perceived safety of their own home, disappeared into the night, leaving behind nothing but questions and an unsettling silence that echoes to this day. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true horror stories.